Sunderland are back to winning ways, perhaps not in the most convincing sense of the word, perhaps in a sense of the word that you're absolutely fine with, but regardless, Sunderland have picked up 3 points in the league and are through to the next round of the Carabao Cup after dispatching Sheffield United. Welcome back to the ROKER RAPPORT podcast. My name is Alex and I am in a far better mood than I was last time out when it was just me and Anthony in that really weird two-man job of a pod that descended into insanity within 1 hour. But thankfully this time round, I believe we should be a lot more sane. I am joined in the studio by 3 guests. The first, SunFM's Lauren. How you doing, Lauren?
Good, brilliant. Happy
Good
to be
stuff.
here. How are you?
I'm not too bad. As I've said, as far as these pods go, I didn't have much to beat last week, but you know, we've got 2 wins, so I'm decent. And we are also joined by a man who perhaps isn't the most popular person when the brands of ROKER RAPPORT or ROKER RAPPORT are mentioned. It is the notorious player rater, Jimmy Lawson.
Still public enemy number 1, even after my appearance in April.
Yeah.
Sad times.
The man who is responsible for many greatest hits, such as Denver Hume 1 out of 10.
That was brilliant. No one got angry about that. People are angry about the McGeady getting a 6. They're like, before the goal he was rubbish, but no one really cared. No one really cared about Hume 1 apart from you, Alex.
What you had, Jimmy, after the Bolton game was the smokescreen of the Ross out.
Yeah,
so you could slide some controversial numbers under the radar and nobody really batted an eyelid.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, me with my eagle eye and my knowledge of you as a person, I was straight in there. You know, someone had to let you know that you were wrong this time, Jimmy, and because Joe Blogs on Twitter couldn't do it, it had to be me. But you know,
you're only as good as your last game, and people weren't angry with me last week. They're angry with Jack Ross. So I feel as if I'm in good form, like Sunderland.
Well, you know, you say good form, I say you had a David Moyes purple patch going into Christmas, but you know. And our third guest in the studio is a man better known for podcasts which do tend to take a more inclined turn to insanity. He is a man better known from Athletico Mince and Top Flight Time Machine. It is Athletico Mince and Top Flight Time Machine's very own Andy Dawson. How you doing, Andy?
I'm very good. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
You're very glad you could make it. How have you been doing?
You know, muddling along.
Yeah.
I'm all right.
What constitutes muddling along, though, Andy?
Well, just lurching from one personal crisis to another.
Well, I mean...
a bit like Sunderland, really.
Yeah.
Kind of why I'm here.
I feel your pain. I mean, sometimes my crises extend to existential as well. But you know, personal's always a safe bet for a crisis. Anyhow, things that aren't really a crisis at Sunderland. Well, first of all, we'll start in chronological order for this week. We'll start with the Sheffield United game. Sunderland dispatched Sheffield United away 1-0. The first ever time Sunderland have beaten 2 Premier League teams before October since 2009, which is an incredible stat. Only took 2 relegations for us to emulate that form again, apparently. Make of that what you will. But a max power worldie was the difference as we beat the home side of Bramall Lane to advance to the last 32 of the Cup. So, you know, let's talk about the only thing that really matters in that game as far as the game itself is concerned. The goal. Jimmy, start with you.
Yeah, it's a beauty. He gets out his feet well and then just curls it into the top corner. And as we saw again on Saturday, Max Power, he's a talent. He's scored... I'd say about half a dozen technically excellent goals since he's been at Sunderland. Like the Gillingham one, I thought was really underrated when we beat them 4-1 away, and he's on the run outside of the boot into the far corner. The Peterborough one when we drew 1-1 with them. If we'd have won that game, his sort of curling effort into the bottom corner from 25 yards, that was brilliant as well. And that's just the talent he's got. So, yeah, magnificent goal, magnificent result, and now. I guess all 4 of us are going to have to care about the League Cup because we've got a great chance of, getting to within 2 games of Wembley.
Well, I suppose when you get this far in the Cup, you know, you've beaten 2 Premier League teams away. When you do that well, I think you kind of have to care, I suppose, don't you?
No,
I
don't want another Cup run. I certainly don't want another Wembley visit this season. It's the distraction that we don't need, I think. Mm-hmm. To be fair, this might be relevant or not, but as the Sheffield United match was going on, I was at Wembley Stadium.
Right.
Because I was doing a podcast recording on Thursday morning, and the cheapest hotel I could get was the Premier Inn next to Wembley Park Tube Station. So I don't know whether that, you know, superstition or whatever, whether that brought us the luck that we needed to get us through. But I don't want to go back there again in a hurry. I got off the tube, those steps at the top of Wembley Way, and I just so much of that pain came back. From those 2 visits this year. And
we almost walking down Wembley Way with the muscle memory of I've walked this path before alongside happy Pompey fans and happy Charlton fans, and neither time on the way back was I a happy Sunderland fan.
It kind of was like that, yeah. It was like, I mean, you know, so much I was talking to someone a couple of days ago, and he'd said, a mate of mine said he didn't realise the Checker Trade Trophy meant so much to him until he was at Wembley.
Yep.
You know, and we lost it. But yeah, it was that kind of thing. It was like, here's where all that pain was caused months ago, and I don't want another cup run. I don't want to get any further. We just need to get out of this damn league that we're in and then work on whatever else after that.
Yeah. So if we bowed out 1-0 away to Oxford in the cup,
I'd be dancing in the street.
Fair enough. I mean, I suppose it's perfectly understandable given how we've felt about League One. I mean, the novelty has well and truly worn off, hasn't it? You
definitely.
know, it was fun up until we started to lose significant games, really. I think as far as we got to the Checker Trade Trophy, and I think that was the turning point for me, where I thought, you know what, I don't want to be in the Checker Trade Trophy with our senior team. I do just want to be in a better division with a better team and a better standard of football. You know, I can totally sympathise, Andy. I think we do just need to principally get out of the league. Anything else is a nice bonus, but it's probably a burden that we don't need in the long run. Yeah. But anyway, back to the actual game itself, and obviously Max Power in 2 games now has been absolutely tremendous, and his contributions they can't be faulted to absolutely tremendous goals. And the first of those was obviously the one against Sheffield United. So I'll throw this question to you, Lauren. Was it a mistake on Jack Ross's part to leave Max Power as out in the cold as he has been, favouring instead players like Grant Ledbetter, who a lot of us feel just kind of slows the game down?
100%. I think when you've got a player like Max Power that can knock in a goal the way he does, why in your right mind would you not put him on the pitch at any given opportunity?
We've seen players like Ledbetter, though, I suppose, to maybe form a counter-argument there. Ledbetter's looked very likely when he has played of knocking the ball in from distance as well, but obviously he's probably been a bit less lucky than Power has. What does Power have that Ledbetter therefore doesn't?
He's better, clearly. He knows what he's doing, and Ledbetter just isn't up to the standard that we need for him to replace a player like Max Power. Do
you think Ledbetter would probably look better in a side that was more in the defensive than the offensive? Or do you think it is just a case that Power is just the better player?
Power is just the better player. He finds the net when he needs to.
Fair enough.
I think early on last season when we first got him, I think Max had that in his locker, goals like the ones he scored this week. And I think his confidence was absolutely shot by those red cards he got last season. He never looked like the same player again after that. But I think he's beginning to get it back now, which is obviously, massive bonus for us.
Another thing as well is that we're talking about Power and Ledbetter. I think part of the problem was last season, quite often they were playing together, and it just doesn't really work because neither of them are naturally defensive. So Max Power would essentially try and play like cat and mole. I mean, we've seen it when they played together this season. He'd run around, he'd get yellow cards, he'd miss tackles because neither of them have the instincts that, say, a Dylan McGeoch has to see the space, to see where the danger's developing. So when we're playing the two together, Max Power's not playing his natural game. Ledbetter, to an extent, he was sitting deep, he was throwing his passes, but he didn't have the right guy there to allow him to express himself. I think it's maybe the balance more than anything else that looks good with McGeoch and Power, where you've got the more defensive-minded guy that allows Power to go out and express himself and score those goals. Because, I mean, Ledbetter and Dobson, in theory, should have worked, because similarly to Parry's box-to-box, but Dobson's still sort of learning the game, whereas Power, more experience, more pedigree. It just looks like a good pairing and probably the best we've got.
Yeah, there's a question, though, as well, Jimmy. You're talking about how Ledbetter's natural role was to sit deep and maybe soak up possession and then distribute the ball from there. That's sort of how we've always seen Grant Ledbetter. But is it possible to argue that given the ambitions we have for this season, given the style of play we should be having against teams that are largely inferior to us on paper, should we even have a player that plays in Ledbetter's position?
I think he's quite useful for some games. If you're going to teams are going to sit in a low block, and they're going to defend deep against us, like an AFC Wimbledon. Maybe having that guy who can switch to play, who can see the pass into feet, into our strikers, into theoretically our number 10, into 09. Having someone for those sort of games to bring off the bench, in theory, makes sense. I mean, I thought Peterborough was our best player. That's another one of my infamous player ratings, but I thought he was our best player in that game because that was a game where our mentality was all cautious. It was 0-0's a good result here. Let's play it safe. And he's the one guy sometimes who is willing to get his foot on the ball and is willing to look forwards. So I do feel as if he has some use to the team. It's just about partnerships and finding the right pairing. And at the moment, he's not really in that. But I think it would be unfair to sort of say that he doesn't have a place in the squad.
I'm going to, again though, Jimmy, what you say there is you use an example of when it's worked to sort of be more cautious and slow the player down. Referencing Peterborough perhaps isn't the best example because that's the game where we lost 3-0. Now, I mean, I know what you're getting at, but now one attempt to do that with Leadbitter, it sort of backfired. I think every time this season that we've had a lack of sort of pace in an engine in the middle of the games where we've been largely undone. Like I think back to Coventry where I think it was Jordi Hawula and Baitan Bakare were obviously very quick. They're very pacey players, and they just ran through the middle like a hot knife through butter and just tore us to bits. I remember thinking that 5-4 was probably quite a flattering scoreline because 5-0 was the more fair result. We were just extremely clinical on the day. But yeah, I think that's probably a point that brings us quite nicely into the MK Dons game, because all we really had to say is, as far as the Sheffield United game goes, is that we're through to the next round of the Cup, and Max Power did very well to score the goal he did. And he did just the same against MK Dons. Obviously, we won 2-1, courtesy from Max Power screamer, and then a lovely chip from Luke O'Nien. A very good result, all things considered. And it was a game where we saw quite a few different changes. For as far as the Ross back-in campaign goes to convince the Ross outers, it was one step that he's taken on a long road to get a lot of the fans back on side. But obviously, but ultimately, I think he made the right decisions. What do you think about Jack Ross's team selection, Lauren, in that game?
It worked. I couldn't really complain too much. We took 3 points. Max Power got a good goal. O'Nien got a goal. How can you complain when you're taking 3 points? I
think that's pretty fair and to the point. Yeah, I would say so. Looking at the midfield, I would say, as a specific, obviously, it's taken Leadbitter out. How much more lively did we look?
A lot more, and I also think Aidan McGeady not being on the pitch makes a difference.
Yes, yeah.
Totally.
How so?
They're not scared anymore. It's like it's Aidan's game when he's on the pitch, but when he's not on the pitch, they're running up and down. We get a Max Power goal like we've seen, but without McGeady. But McGeady's such a good player, so it's like you're stuck between putting him on and having everyone standing behind him, not putting him on and getting goals, but he is a good player.
Yeah, there is that over-reliance on McGeady, isn't there? I think because we're all just so aware, everyone from us to Jack Ross will know that in League One he's probably, well, I say probably, he's definitely the best player in terms of quality and pedigree.
Yeah.
This league has hitherto never seen a man like Aidan McGeady in it. But does that, do you think, give us a sense of, like, when he's on the pitch, we have to get the ball to him because he's just there and it's daft not to?
Yes, he pulls a couple of tricks, he scores a good goal when he gets the chance, but I think it makes them scared. They don't think they can take their chance. Well, Aidan's on the pitch, so we'll have to give it to him because he's the one that does well. It's not the case. Yeah,
almost as if that when Denver Hume or Luke O'Nien are on the ball, they're perhaps too polite and think, right, well, McGeady's in space, I could take this man on and cut inside, or I could just send the ball down to Aidan and just sort of let him do what he's meant to do.
Yeah, and sort of let him take a chance. He might miss, whereas I might have got it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I just think it puts fear in them from taking chances that they are capable of taking.
Yeah, and I think perhaps based on just like sheer probability, it might not always be the case that just giving the ball to Aidan every time isn't the best idea, because what we've seen in recent games is that when we have sent the ball to him more times than we've sent it to anybody else, he's done a lot of falling over. He's missed a few. I mean, he's come close, given, but ultimately he hasn't scored. And perhaps if we were just a bit more expressive and a bit more varied with who we're passed to,
we could have reaped the rewards. 100%, and give it to the youngins that want to take their chances, as far as I can see. And maybe keeping McGeady off the pitch for a little while isn't going to do us as much harm as it should, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Is there a case to be made as well, Andy, that it's probably good? I know McGeady's injured, so he misses out by default, but just resting him for a bit, does taking the spotlight off him, does that benefit him and the team?
Yeah, I think it does. I can just back up what was said there. It would be nice to not have to rely on Aidan McGeady. It would be nice to know that we've got enough in our locker to get results without having to, base our whole game around him, kind of thing. And I think when he comes back from this injury, it wouldn't do anyone any harm for him to be on the bench for a couple of games just while he, gets back into full fitness. And just to try that thing of seeing what it's like to bring him on with 25, 30 minutes to go and, see if it changes a game that we're already in control of, hopefully, through those players being allowed to express themselves a bit more without having to revert to give it to Aidan and see what he can do.
I mean, obviously as well, he's getting on. I mean, the quality, we're going to see it for the rest of this season. He's not going to it's not going to be like Footy Manager where you play an aged player in his mid-30s and you just watch the stats go down after every game. It's going to be fine till the season goes out. I don't doubt that. But obviously he is getting on, and while the quality is still there, and while the over-reliance is still there, is it quite like a logical decision to see him more as an impact sub
Possibly. I mean, I've said for a long time I'd like to see him play as a number 10 because if he's more central, he's got that ability he can draw free kicks out of defenders in around the edge of the box. He can get shots away from that position that he doesn't necessarily get the chance to do playing out wide. You know, he's got that vision that he can bring other players in, whoever's playing up front. I mean, I don't know. I would have tried him there a while ago, but maybe he could be an impact sub and come on and play in that position after O'Nine's ran himself into the ground for 60 minutes, maybe.
Yeah. Because what we have as well, our attacking players, they have a lot of ability for League One, and that is definitely matched by the work ethic, something that we haven't often been able to say about Sunderland players in recent times, obviously. But there's a lot of logic in a player like, say, Luke O'Nien. Once he sort of, like, as you say, run himself into the ground, if he comes off from McGeady, you've not only have you got fresh legs, you've got the best ones in League One
as well. Yeah.
Plus, as well, playing him as number 10, he's got both flanks to run onto, hasn't he? You know, in theory.
Just let him drift wherever he wants to. Just give him a totally free role behind the striker.
Yeah, that's it. Like, it's that like ambiguous term, the free role, but obviously it is just what it is, isn't it? If you gave McGeady the ball, put him in the number 10 role in the hole, and just said, right, just when you get the ball, just do what you see fit.
Because that would put the fear of God into some central defenders.
Oh, because they wouldn't know what he's going to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. If he plays on the wing, then Aidan McGeady is fundamentally an inside forward, because you know what he's going to do. He's going to try and cut inside and shoot. They know what to do. They can prepare for that. He's a one-trick pony, effectively. So ultimately, that means that maybe 1 in every 5 shots he'll score, and it'll be a lovely goal, but the rest he'll either miss or he'll fall over. I don't know. Because he likes to do that now, apparently. Yeah. Anyway, let's just talk about the game as a whole, as a general thing that occurred. So we'll go back to you for this one, Jimmy. What did you make of the MK Dons game as a whole?
I thought it was a bit weird because nothing happened for 20 minutes. We score a wonder goal and you're like, oh, here we go. And then we were incredible up until half time, totally dominant, get the second goal, could have got a third, and you're thinking, right, let's have it. Then absolutely nothing happens after half time. Nothing's happening. Our intensity drops off. They look as if they're happy to take their 2-0 defeat. We gift them a goal back into the game. And then at the time, I thought, oh my God, here we go. Typical Sunderland. Here comes 2-2. But you kind of look back on the game, you look at the stats afterwards, and it was only really a few crosses here and there from MK Dons. We were relatively comfortable. So on the whole, it's a game where we were good value for the win, and we played quite well. But because the game ended on the downer, because we let in that goal in the second half, it kind of takes some of the shine off what was an improved performance, at least based on other home games this season.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that we were bad in the second half?
Yeah, a little bit. But once again, it's sort of Jack Ross. He's sort of a cautious manager by nature. He probably thought, well, there's no way this MK Dons team is scoring against us twice. We can kill the game here. And to a degree we did. I mean, it was probably you'd say a McLaughlin error which let the team back in, but then he makes the change to bring Hume on, which gives a bit more energy. And we ended up seeing out the game relatively comfortably. So although obviously from an attacking sense you want more, you want Sunderland to be dominant, you want Sunderland to sort of put out a statement victory, on a whole I guess you've got to be fairly pleased with the 3 points, especially when you take into account the pressure he was under going into that match as well.
I never ever feel comfortable with this Sunderland team being 1 goal in front, though. You know, you're saying we saw the game out at 2-1, but you know, knowing what we're like defensively with some of the hideous lapses that we have now and again. When we went 2-0 up, I said to my brother, I said, I'm going to put a quid on 2-2 here. Because I was half joking.
Yeah, because a true Sunderland fan knows that if you're about to experience disappointment, you may as well profit from it.
Yeah. It was that false dawn again that we've had so many times where we started brightly. Well, we didn't start that brightly, but once we got the first goal, then the second one came. And I said to my brother, you know, finally we're going to hand out a hammer into someone, because it's long, long overdue. Mm-hmm. And there's times when we feel as though we're really on it today. We start well, get a goal or two early on, and you think, right, we can go on, win this 3 or 4 maybe, and then just put it to bed. But it never, ever plays out like that.
No.
And yesterday was another example of that. They got the goal back again, and I thought, you know, here we go again.
Yeah, we'd sort of put the game half to bed, hadn't we?
And we never looked like we were going to go on and get that third one, which would have been the crucial goal.
It's the same sort of Jack Ross sort of Sunderland team that we saw last season as well. The kind of team where for 90 minutes, obviously they're playing, but for perhaps 30 and no more than 30, are they like very clinical, or at least trying to be? But obviously, that's not going to get you the results you want 10 times out of 10. Because when you look against Rotherham, we had a very good spell against Rotherham, but obviously we got one goal. We fluffed the penalty and we didn't get any more. So that meant that when we died back down and they had a spell in the second half and they could get 1-1, and then all of a sudden, your 3 points are compromised. And
we're always prone to those sort of errors that lead to a goal coming in. One clean sheet this season.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I mean, obviously, and hilariously, it's against the Premier League team. But against teams in our division, in the third division of English football, we apparently cannot do that at all, which is very Sunderland.
Worrying. Very Sunderland. Yeah.
Is that not what I said? Were they not direct synonyms? It's quite incredible. It does make you wonder, though, and I'll throw this question to you, Lauren. Why is it that Jack Ross's teams can't seem to play well in the first 45 and at least play good in the second 45? Why do they always seem to just die off?
I think his halftime talk is in a complete foreign language.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see a different team. It is weird. The game yesterday, I went and got a drink and missed Max Power's goal because I was watching boring football.
That is devastating.
Well, yes, absolutely gutted. But I was just sat there and I was like, this is just not happening. Well, what was I waiting for? So I was like, right, I'll go now. Got a drink, missed the goal. That was the game it was, though. There was just nothing going on. There
wasn't really. I mean, you could say we looked like quite comfortable, but I think therein lies the problem, that we just looked comfortable, didn't we, for most of the game. And MK Dons, they were kind of threatening. They might have got something on another day, but we were the better team, as you'd obviously expect, as you'd obviously hope. But yeah, I mean, there was that nice spell after the Max Power goal.
Yeah.
But that was, again, that was that kind of Jack Ross model of game I was talking about, where you play for 90 and you maybe look good for 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah, we don't seem to be able to look good for a full 45 and a second 45. It just doesn't make sense.
No.
And I don't understand it. I don't know what he's saying to them to not give them the energy that every other team we play seems to get in that second half.
I would love to be a fly on the wall and in those halftime team talks, because I want to know what he does say to them. Like, I was talking to one of my mates earlier, and he said that are the players not just knackered at halftime? Because we have a lot of very industrious players that do an awful lot of running. It's been the case now for this season. Last season you got 09, you had Honeyman, you've got Gooch, you've got players that really get themselves about. So is it the case that they have a really good spell when they get the momentum, but then when the momentum dies, they are just kind of burnt out? Could it be a case of that?
It could be, but it shouldn't be.
No,
totally shouldn't be.
I feel like fitness shouldn't ever be under question for a football team.
Definitely not. No. You are a professional footballer. Get yourself in that gym all the time. If you're not training, what are you doing? What are you doing with does me head in.
I mean, we're hamstrung as well by the fact that we've got strikers that don't score goals.
Mm-hmm.
This is
a very fundamental issue.
It's a huge fundamental issue. Charlie White, God bless him, he tries his hardest, but and a lot of people want him to succeed. It feels a bit like Ed Miliband in 2015. He's useless, but we want him to do well.
Yeah, that's true.
And the Will Grigg thing, I can't get my head around. Still, it's been 9 months since we signed him.
Will Grigg's like a candidate that has been backed by the national press to do well, but therefore not.
I don't understand. He scored so many goals at this level, whether it's a tactical thing that he's not fitting into the system that Ross plays. I think if you sign someone that scored as many goals as Grigg has, you build your team around him, and you look at the videos of what he's done at Wigan, and you talk to him and say, what works best for you in terms of putting the ball in the back of the net. And I don't know whether that's happened or not, or whether he's just his confidence has gone.
I think with Grigg, when he played for Wigan, my knowledge of Wigan Athletic isn't as extensive as perhaps some fans of Wigan Athletics are. But ultimately, Grigg, a lot of Grigg's goals came from play through the middle, and this comes back to what you were saying earlier, really, Andy, about us and our reliance, and you as well, Lauren, about our reliance on Aidan McGeady. About how obviously we are inclined to just get the ball to him when he's on the pitch. And because McGeady's a winger, that means that we, by getting the ball to Wade, and what you're essentially doing, you're prioritising play from the wings over everything else.
Yeah. You're reducing the areas you can
exactly. So you aren't playing through the middle as much as you perhaps could, and when Grigg's on the pitch as much as you perhaps should, because Will Grigg, the quality cannot be disputed. We haven't really seen it yet. But it can't be doubted that it is there somewhere, because you don't just score all those goals and forget how to do it.
Yeah, but getting back to the initial point, we've got strikers that don't score goals, and you're always gonna, on paper we should be doing a lot better than we are. Really, we're scraping these 2-1 wins here and there. We're still drawing a few games, or more games than we should be, and the difference there is if you've got someone up top that can put the ball in the net, that makes that difference.
2-1 becomes 4-1.
Exactly, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a major issue.
You'd hope now, with 09 coming in, that maybe that offers a route back into the team for Grigg. Because 09's so physical, he's so willing to battle, he's good in the air. If you have him essentially doing the Charlie Wyke job, then maybe you're bringing Grigg. Like we said, with McGeady, it's all a bit predictable. Gooch still doesn't really know how to play off the ball. If you bring in someone like Grigg, he at least offers that threat in behind. And maybe we're talking about a completely different Sunderland team. I'd like to think if we are going to sort of look at ways to play without McGeady in the team, if we're going to look at other ways to evolve our style, maybe 09 as the second strike is the perfect way to reintroduce Grigg. Because there are still a lot of players in this team that are struggling with their confidence. Like, you look at Conor McLaughlin and he's still playing at about 70% of what he can be. And you kind of think, well, maybe if we can get some results together, maybe if we get 09 and Maguire who are firing, if we can put Grigg around them, maybe this is the time it turns. At least that's my hope.
So I think really in general, having maybe not even just 09 as a number 10, but having that real sort of signposted number 10 on the pitch, I don't need someone to hold up a flag and say, I'm your number 10, I'm on the pitch, Grigg's in front of us, I'm behind him. It does just boil down to the fact that without McGeady, we can play through the middle because we don't need to put it on his flank. And because we don't need to put it on his flank, we can put it wherever seems most applicable to the situation. Anyway, we've got some questions from some of the ROKER RAPPORT's listeners, and the first one is very applicable to what we've just been talking about. It's from Paul Dodge Rogers, who says, do people really expect us to absolutely smash teams for a full 90 minutes? In my opinion, it's unrealistic to keep up the intensity for the first half of the full game, though I think if we were fitter, we could do it for longer. I don't think it's a tactical thing necessarily. So that comes back to what we're saying about fitness. And obviously, I'll throw this one back to you, Jimmy. I'll go straight back to you. What do you make of that? Do you think that there is an expectation to smash teams for 90 minutes?
Maybe we're unrealistic. There was definitely a point last season where we were going 3-4-0 up and you could see the team stop. It became a goal of the season competition. Like, I remember McGeady was coming back from injury and he was just aiming for the top corner every time. Oviedo was similar. Maguire was similar. And I do think it's a bit of a mentality thing with this team, maybe the way they're coached by Jack Ross, maybe the fact he's someone who prioritises defence, the fact clean sheet's been his buzzword all season. I do kind of think that we're a team that's kind of instructed to concentrate on the defensive side of things because we don't have very good defenders. And maybe that's why we're not battering teams. Maybe that's why after half-time yesterday, we played completely differently. I think it's very much a mentality thing rather than a fitness thing. Maybe people still underestimate the level of competition in this league. I'm not really sure. But I'd say it's more to do with the way the team's being instructed than fitness or other issues.
Obviously, Jack Ross's instructions are something that have come under a lot of scrutiny. It's been the main talking point as to why we aren't battering teams and why we're being so polite, why we're playing Ledbetter in the holding midfielder role away to Bolton with 8 senior players who met each other 5 seconds ago. And I don't think it is. I don't think it is unreasonable to assume, as you alluded to, Andy, that Jack Ross gives the lads a pint of nightness at half time and reads them in Uzbek. But at the end of the day, it boils down to something like that. It's just, what are the tactical decisions from Ross, and is it those themselves that are holding us back? We'll go over to you again, Lauren. Like, what is the biggest mistake Jack has made in the time he's been with us? What is the biggest flaw that has perhaps held us back, as Paul says, smashing teams for 90 minutes?
Well, I do think fitness definitely plays a part. You can see that some of our players are out of shape, and there just isn't an excuse for that if you're a professional footballer. Not to get on my high horse about footballers being fit enough, but you know what I mean? Sometimes he makes strange substitutions at strange times, which I don't always get it, but I'm not a football manager. I'm not here to criticise him, but stop putting Charlie Wyke on.
Yeah, well, I think that's the issue though that we'll be talking about there, isn't it? That like we've got 2 strikers and like I feel like I'm always in a limbo between, can we not put Grigg on now, or should we not try Wyke instead?
Yeah,
and it seems that no matter who we go for, we just want the other one on, which is a big problem to have, really. It's
the syndrome. I do want Charlie Wyke to do so well because he puts 100% in, but he can't do it.
No.
He's not a very good footballer. Let's just put it out there. He's not a very good footballer.
I don't think
he's like Kevin Kyle without the physique.
Which,
and that's not a compliment.
No, it's not, because the physique was actually a very large part of Kevin Kyle's essence, really, which Well, you take that away, you've not got much left, really, have you? You've got...
I mean, talking about the defence, I think there's signs of improvement there, and I'm fairly positive looking forward because Lynch, I thought, was fantastic yesterday, outstanding, and Willis has been an improvement, and De Bock looked good for the 60-odd minutes he was on. He'll get there once he gets his fitness. So, I mean, the back four was all 4 players that weren't here last season, and I think, looking as a whole, it's an improvement on what we had last season. So I think, you know, we kept a clean sheet the other night. Sheffield United, we conceded yesterday, but it was a silly goal. And, you know, mistakes like that can be eradicated, hopefully. So going forward, defensively, I think we're going to get more solid. But it's this thing about not scoring goals and not having a number 9 or whatever, or a striker that can score goals.
Yeah, not having maybe one of those fundamentals that get you the goals.
Just someone that's going to get you 15 goals a season. Well, we're not going to get promoted if we don't have someone that can do that.
I would go on record to say there's never been a team that's got promoted from any league that doesn't have a definitive goal scorer.
Yeah, exactly.
That must be the case. Like, it just doesn't happen, you know? I mean...
We need someone that can put the goals in the way that Madja was last season.
Yeah, and if Madja was putting those away, I fully believe we would have got promoted.
Totally.
We might have even just won the league because he was on course for 25, 30 that season. He was doing incredibly. So to not have a player that emulates what he did is quite tragic, really. But
well, we thought we had one. We thought we got one with Grigg.
Yeah,
hindsight's a great thing. Because we were all you know, dancing around with joy when we got Grigg because we thought that's the direct replacement for Madja. Everything's going to be great now. But...
And if you ask literally any Sunderland fan to marry up realism with optimism and answer the question, who should replace Josh Madja, we go, Will Grigg. Get Will Grigg. Exactly. You know, he's a fringe player at Wigan now. He's got an absolutely unrivaled League One record. Just get him in.
Ticked all the boxes, didn't it?
Yeah, he was a very similar player to Madja. You know, Madja was more of a poacher. Will Grigg is by trade an absolute poacher. It only made sense. So to not have that now...
So why are we not getting the ball in positions that Madja was converting from?
I don't know. It's one of those questions that I can't put my finger on it. Can you, Jimmy?
I think we underestimate how good Madja was. I think that what he was doing was quite special and really hard to replicate, sort of in terms of his skill, his awareness, and maybe he was being a bit lucky. Maybe there are a couple of times he shot through legs. Maybe there are a couple of times he's caught keepers out. But for the most part, I just think what he was doing was special, that Grigg doesn't have that same skill and awareness around the box. And that because Madja was 19, because he was an afterthought going into the season, I just think everyone within the club didn't realise quite how special what he was doing was. And everyone, said, easy. Well, we just need to replace his goals. There's Will Grigg. We've replaced his goals, done. And just because of Madja and his lack of a reputation, we kind of underestimated how good he was.
The difference, the massive contrast between Madja and Grigg was that Madja, as you said, that he was a complete afterthought going into the season. He was a player that came onto the scene the season before due to a complete lack of other options, to put it quite bluntly. You know, him and Azoro were just kind of played because the fans wanted more sentimental appearances rather than just some random journeymen who couldn't do the job because they were injury prone, etc. But the difference was that obviously Madja was completely unproven for those aforementioned reasons. So when he came into the scene and started doing mint, we were all just buzzing. Contrast that with Grigg, who comes with the greatest pedigree of any League One striker, in complete contrast to the virtually unknown and unproven Madja. So already there are expectations. And I think where Madja benefited from a lack thereof of expectations, Will Grigg suffered, because when he didn't hit the ground running, it didn't come off. I don't know. What's your thought on that, Lauren, as far as expectations go with these strikers?
Well, I think we deserve to have these expectations because we need goals. So we need a player that can put the ball in the back of the net. So why shouldn't we have those expectations from a striker? Track record, like you said, Will Grigg, you don't get better than him for League One. That's it.
Is it a failure on the manager's part if you can't get a player like that scoring? Is it just, like, bluntly putting it, is it ultimately Jack Ross's fault, and can it be no one else's fault?
Well, I just think he's not obviously given the right opportunities to score. So who else can you blame for it? But players should be able to pass to Grigg at the right circumstances to get him to do that.
Yeah,
I would say yes. It is the manager's fault, because we've talked about McGeady, you said, as the best player ever seen in this level, possibly, and then Grigg, one of the greatest goal scoring records of any player at this level. You got those two in your same team, and you can't score goals. Well, who's to blame? They're either being coached wrong, they're being set up wrong, they're being told what to do wrong. So there's a fundamental problem there.
Yeah, I mean, what you've said there is very much a very loaded question with a very obvious answer. As far as I'm concerned, I couldn't agree more. But that issue, I think, for me, it doesn't just extend to McGeady and Grigg. It extends to the entire team. Now, just, Jimmy, a yes or no, do we have the best squad in the league on paper?
Almost certainly, I would have thought.
Yeah, that wasn't a yes, Jimmy.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
You were getting with your controversial opinions. I knew it was a mistake bringing you here.
I'd say yes, we do. I mean, we look at Ipswich that went down with an awful team. They haven't made too many changes and they're flying.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be hard to put a team together that can do well. And on paper, yes, we have got the best team.
So that's a categorical yes from you,
Absolutely,
Andy.
yeah.
That's a yes with an asterisk from Jimmy. Lauren?
I'll give it a yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'd say yes as well. So I think for a unanimous yes that we all believe in the studio, I mean, obviously, we don't account for the entire voice of the collective Sunderland people, but 4 out of 4 is a pretty good yield, really, there. We all believe we have the best squad in the league on paper. The fact that we're 5th in the league, therefore, it has to be regarded quite simply as an underachievement, especially given the nature of the games that we've got. I mean, we said about it earlier. Ultimately, yes, you have won more than you've drawn and lost, but, 2-1s against Rochdale and MK Dons, who were sat in the bottom 8 of the table, it doesn't look good.
The 2019 record is not good. We've drawn something like 15 out of 33 league games since the 1st of January, and that's not going to get you promoted.
It's not. Not. The 1-1 does not get you promoted.
No, and we've fallen back into that trap again. We had a good run of a few wins early on after a dodgy start, but we fell back into that trap of draws again. And now, we've won 2 in a week, but we need to kick on and get a load of wins under our belt over the next month or 2.
Oh, yeah.
Because otherwise we're just going to be floundering again.
We've got another question from Alison Smith on Facebook, who says, what's going on with John McLaughlin? The saviour so many times last season and he looks a shadow of himself this season. Should Lee Burge be given his opportunity in his place, Jimmy?
Yeah, I think it's hard to argue against it. The only reason it's something Andy sort of touched on to keep him in would be continuity in terms of the defence has started to look more settled. We're starting to see improvement defensively. Do you keep him in for continuity? But it's getting harder and harder to excuse Burge not being in there. I'm actually in the minority in terms of I would have started McLaughlin yesterday. I think he's one of our few leaders. I think his form was so good last season that he deserves every chance to stay in the team. I can understand why Ross did it. I expected him to stay in the team. But yesterday was the first time I've ever seen a Sunderland player kind of look at McLaughlin and say, what on earth are you doing? Like Lynch just shot him daggers after the goal yesterday. And I kind of feel like the players are starting to lose confidence in him. So now feels like a good time for Burge to come in for me.
Yeah, I was going to say as well, I mean, that goal was a pretty naff one to concede, wasn't it, really? It's that thing that inexperienced or just generally poor keepers do where they come halfway out for a cross and then don't commit to it. And I think he got to that point and obviously hesitated, and the next thing you know, it's in the net, and it's a really sloppy-looking goal, and it's a very sort of unpleasant way to let the opposition back into the game when really they should have been out of sight by then. But regardless, if you had Burge in goal, given the recent confidence and form that he's got into his belt now, he probably wouldn't have done that. Just my opinion. I don't know. What do you think, Andy?
I mean, I think because he did so well last season, there's probably an argument for giving him a little bit more leeway and giving him time to turn it around.
How much longer can he dine out on that form?
Well, I don't know. Maybe you've got to look over the next couple of games and see how he does. I suppose you've got Lynch, who's come in and who is, to me, from yesterday, going to be an upgrade on what we've already had. And if he's turning around and looking at McLaughlin like that, then perhaps it's something they're going to talk about off the pitch, and it might cause McLaughlin to redouble his efforts and come again. But I'd give him a little bit more time. But he's definitely not the player he was last season. There's no doubt about that.
And I'm sure he's under no illusion that if he keeps making daft mistakes like those, that Burge is just going to take his place. Yeah, he was probably watching on at the Sheffield United game, watching Burge make those saves, thinking, crap. I could be out of my number one. Well, in definition, he's not going to take his actual jersey, but I'm going to be able to be number one shirt here,
I think we're lucky that MK Dons didn't push on as much as we thought they might have done when they got that goal back.
Yeah, I don't think they were good enough to push on.
No,
that's what decides a lot of the games against these lesser teams that we're playing. Not the fact that we're necessarily a very good team, but more so that the other teams are just, a bit crap.
Yeah, we coped with anything that they had. After they got that stupid goal back.
I mean, I don't really like watching. I mean, I think what partially makes like Sunderland games that aren't very good dull in this division. I think it's probably lends itself to what you said earlier, Lauren. That obviously it's a bit boring, and I think it gets a bit boring with Sunderland when there's that sort of like that like stalemate because we're not playing particularly brilliantly. We're not playing bad, but we're not playing great, as good as we should be, and because the opposition are terrible as well. The game's decided by who lacks the least amount of quality, not who's got the most. And I think we do have the players to to have the most quality. I don't know. Going back to that same question, Lauren, what do you think? Would you keep Big John in, or is it time for Burge to... I was looking for a pun there. Burge onto the scene. That's not a phrase. That's not. I can't say that.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I like John. I think he's done well for us, but there's also comes a time when you get a little bit sick of constantly letting a goal in, and I think it is time for Burge to take the stand and start instead of John.
Yeah, I think when you look at that game yesterday, had he have not made that error, we would have got a clean sheet because they just weren't clinical at all. So you have to look and think, how responsible is McLaughlin for the clean sheet famine?
Exactly, and we get sick of 1-1s, we get sick of 2-1s. There's always the extra one that goes in that we don't want to see. And is it John's time now to let Lee Burge take it? Because I think from watching him, I would start Burge.
I mean, how many games have we not scored in since Jack Ross came? It's not many.
Not many. Barnsley didn't score on Barnsley.
Peterborough
didn't score. That's it. That's
it. So and we've scored, I think, in every home game.
Sorry.
Have we scored in every home game since he's arrived? I think
Yes,
that's one of
every
the stats.
single home game.
So there you are. Keep clean sheets.
Mm-hmm.
And we're always capable of getting a goal from somewhere, even if we have got this problem where the strikers can't score. But there's a goal from somewhere in every game. So, we need to sort the clean sheet issue out.
Yeah. And what did we get last season at this stage of the season when McLaughlin was playing well? Clean sheets. We got them then. If you look at the games, but I mean, obviously we did again let in the odd daft goal here and there. But I look at some of the games. The Scunthorpe 3-0, and if the opposition never dared to threaten, then Big John was there. But I mean, is it any coincidence, Lauren, going back to you, that our only clean sheet of this season has come when McLaughlin wasn't in goal?
Well, exactly, and it just makes you think that why is he still starting?
It could just very much be his time just to move over. Like, if he was dropped, it's not the point of no return. He can come back, but would that benefit him as a player if he was dropped in any sense of the word?
I think so. A bit of rest doesn't do you any harm at the end of the day, and I think giving Lee Burge the chance to give us some more clean sheets can't be a bad thing. Honestly, I feel like Lee Burge's biggest fan here. I would start him in the next game.
Yeah.
Am I right in thinking that McLaughlin still hasn't signed a new contract and he's out of contract in the summer?
That's true.
So that's another thing to think about as well, isn't it, long term?
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, how much sleep would you lose given how he's played recently? How much sleep would you lose if he went? That's the question.
Depends how well Burge does.
Yeah.
True. Very true. Anyway, I think this is a good time just to segue into an announcement, a very special announcement. We have two competition announcements that we can announce on today's podcast. How many more times can I say announce? Let's find out. The first competition last week, our friends at Flatback 4 offered one of our followers the choice of a free Sunderland t-shirt. We had hundreds of entrants, and I am pleased to announce our winner is Daniel Jenks89. That's a Twitter handle at Daniel Jenks89. So congratulations, Daniel. Please DM the ROKER RAPPORT podcast with your contact details, and we will ensure that gets to you post-haste. You can catch Flatback 4's new bubble hat range and t-shirts on the website and also on Soccer AM. So yeah, that's that. That's the first of our two. The second one will be with you very shortly. We'll not do two consecutively because we'll like a little bit of suspense. Why not? Anyway, let's have one more question, and this will be from James Jackson on Facebook, who says, 10 games gone, the league is gradually starting to take shape. Have the panel seen enough so far to suggest that we'll get promoted? Let's go back to you, Jimmy.
I think we look like a playoff team again, really. I think we look like a team that's not going to lose many games, that's going to draw a fair few games. We look like a playoff team. At this stage, it's unclear who the good teams are. Ipswich look pretty good. Peterborough at times look amazing and then lose weird games. So it's unclear who that second team is, and in theory that could still be us. But we look like a playoff team again. Maybe the league's going to be a lot weaker with no outstanding teams, and we sneak in second.
Yeah. What's the difference between us being a playoff team than, in your opinion, being an automatic team?
It's like Andy said, it's the goals. It's the ability to blow away teams. It's the ability to be a bit more clinical in both penalty areas, both in terms of our goalkeeping, our individual errors in defence, and just our strikers firing. Oh, am I right in thinking then that you would say that the main sort of weaknesses that are holding us back are those at the far ends of the pitch? It's the two extreme ends of the Sunderland lineup. It's the lack of goals and perhaps mistakes in net? Yeah, because I mean, yesterday, for the most part, we had control in the game. We had one dominant spell. It took a goalkeeping error for the other team to gain confidence and come back into it. I feel like we're a team that has more match winners than other teams that can definitely fire away out of this division. It's just having the confidence and the belief that we can keep clean sheets and we can actually do that. Do you think that based on what we have now that there is reason to assume that we will improve under Jack Ross? That's so hard to say, because It feels like we've seen this movie a million times before. The 1-1s, the lads, we're winning. Let's take it easy. It feels as if he's not really improving. It feels as if we're not really learning lessons as we go. Maybe now he's lucked into something with 09 off a striker. Maybe that's going to be the turning point. Maybe it's Joel Lynch coming in. Maybe we finally found something, but it's so hard to say after one win against a team that might be a bottom half team this year.
Well, they certainly didn't look very good. Neither them nor AFC Wimbledon. They were both very poor teams when they came up here, and we didn't really dispatch them with ease, did we? I mean, okay, Wimbledon were, I would say, the worst team I've seen Sunderland play this season. Yeah, they were like crap. But again, you won that 3-1, and that's not a great win. I know I am nitpicking really, because ultimately I'd take 3-1 week in week out happily, but when you're playing the worst team in the league potentially, 3-1 doesn't look like great, relatively speaking. You'd hope for a 4-0. I don't know if that's just me getting a bit choosy there, but
I think as well. I mean, they were. I was on holiday with this one, so I just watched it online. But they were rotten, and Maguire was just on fire that day. Mm-hmm. So that's another thing. You need Maguire firing week in and week out, which he doesn't always do. He was quiet again yesterday. He full of plenty of endeavour, but nothing really came off that much for him. Mm-hmm. But I'll just agree with what Jimmy's just said. Yeah, it's the cutting edge of goals, mm-hmm. And we need over the next month or two for there to be a drastic improvement and some consistency and lots of wins to keep us up there. Because otherwise, we're going to be a playoff team again. Well, God knows we don't need that.
I've got quite a radical.
I've made my stance on Wembley perfectly clear earlier on. So.
I dare say you have done exactly that, Andy. Yeah, but I think you probably speak for the vast majority of us when you say that. So it's hardly a controversial opinion, which will contrast greatly with what I'm about to say. Here's a bit of a wacky notion for you, and I said this before, and now with retrospect, I'm very smug saying this, because I think I was almost laughed out the studio by the boys last time I said this, but. They were talking about how clinical McGeady was as a finisher, and this was pre-Rotherham, pre-Bolton, pre-him falling over and missing, etc. And I said that Chris Maguire is our most natural finisher in that team. Mm. I said that I think he is our most natural clinical finisher, and I think that McGeady looks like a good finisher because his skill is very good, and his skill helps him to get to where he needs to be before he hits home, basically. But I think in terms of just raw talent at firing into the net, that Maguire is our best finisher. Would it be completely insane to consider playing Maguire up front as a striker?
Not at all.
No, I don't think that would be a bad idea at all, because what are you getting from Grigg and Wyke that you wouldn't get from Maguire if he was playing in that same role?
Well, that's it. I mean, let's say, Lauren, you look back at this season and you replace every single goal-scoring chance that Wyke and Grigg have spurned, and you put Maguire where they are. Does Maguire convert more than they did?
He takes chances more, I think, and he finds the net a bit more as well. So I'm with it. I think, put him up front.
Yeah.
What are you going to lose when they don't take chances? Mm-hmm. When they do take them, they don't necessarily take them very well.
No.
Because he doesn't totally suit playing out wide. You'd rather have McGeady and Gooch as your wide men.
I think he looks worse playing out wide. I think yesterday when he was
number 10 and then possibly Maguire. It's almost like you're putting him as a false 9, if you like, because we've got two strikers that can't score goals. So... have a look at it and change it. And put Maguire in there as well. Mm-hmm.
As you sort of got at there, like Lauren, if your actual strikers aren't scoring goals, then what harm is there in putting a more attack-minded player in their place?
100%. I think Maguire might be the man to take over, really, to be honest with you. I do love Chris Maguire. I think he changes games when he's on the pitch. I think he'd be a great addition to the front.
Yeah, I think he's a big personality as well, and if it's him banging the goals in and celebrating, that's really going to galvanise the side.
100%. He loves it. He's a shithouse, and we love him for it. He is everything you need in a goal scorer for Sunderland. And if as you say, our strikers can't score goals, put him in. Yeah.
There's been a lot of criticism as well that Jack Ross's side are a bit too polite to the opposition. But if there's one man who is not polite to any opposition, it's Christopher Maguire.
He's not polite to anyone ever.
I don't think that man has ever been polite in his life.
No,
and I love
never.
Him for it.
Oh, 100%. He's what we need,
Yeah. What I use as my point of reference when I sort of make this case, which, I'm happy to say is probably becoming more and more plausible now that we're seeing less of McGeady. It's probably, if you look back at, let's say the first leg of the playoffs against Portsmouth when he scored that goal. Like, that goal sort of, for me, showcased precisely why he could play up front. If you looked at his positioning and you looked at how he finished, when before the goal came to him, it was about, I would say, about a good 8 to 9 seconds before it got to him. and it was maybe like 10 yards away from him, but he'd seen where it was going to drop. He'd land his body up, and he took aim and he fired. He has a very instinctive look about him as for a finisher, and I think, perhaps it's not his natural position, but he's never been far away from the striker's role.
No, I totally agree, and I think it would be a great addition to put him up there, to be honest with you. There's a reason that even when Chris Maguire has a bad day on the pitch, we still call him the king. We still love him. We still want him on the pitch at every given opportunity.
Yeah.
When he's on, he takes chances, and they're good.
Well, that's it. It's a tongue-in-cheek nickname, but it's not without cause.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the AFC Wimbledon performance was the best striking performance we've seen from any player since we came into this league.
Pretty much. It's a hat-trick from a player who's not a striker.
Yeah.
So perhaps maybe he should be a striker.
Done. Agreed.
Totally.
There we are. Case closed. Fantastic. Anyway, this is a good time for competition number 2 to be announced. So, earlier this week, we announced another ROKER Report giveaway to celebrate the launch of FIFA 20. We teamed up with EA Sports to give away a copy of the latest game in the FIFA series. We've had around 1,000 entries across Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, and we are happy to announce the winner as Luke Stoves, who entered via our Facebook page. So congratulations, Luke, and just like we said with Daniel, please DM the ROKER Report Twitter with your contact details, and obviously it'll all be good news from there. Didn't sound very convincing, but I assure you that it shall be. Anyway, back on topic. We've got one last question before we throw this one to you, Andy, and we ask you a few questions, because we've got a few, and again, they're all good. They're all more or less in a tone more suited to a podcast that you would be on, rather than the one that you're a guest on here today. But regardless, they are questions for you. But before that, we've not really spoken about what is my favourite talking point currently, and that is the Sunderland back four. It's not been a favourite talking point for a while, but they've just been really good recently. I mean, I was a massive fan of De Bock yesterday. I thought he looked very assured. I thought it was a great idea bringing on for Hume, but we'll get to that. And I thought Joe Lynch was tremendous and has been for the past 2 games. We'll start with you, Jimmy. What do you make of our 2 new defenders?
It looks better. We've been waiting to have a back four that are good enough technically to play out in this league, to deal with having a lot of the ball, and also tough enough to play League One football. And in Joel Lynch and Jordan Willis, it looks like we finally got it. We've finally got 2 guys who can battle, who can pass the ball, and who know how to defend, and that's not something we've seen under Jack Ross. So it's really positive. De Bock, he looks a bit slow, but he looked good technically. Like Andy said, once he's got his fitness up, that should be an improvement. McLaughlin's good. He's proven in this level. He's just having a horrible season. And you'd think if he's in winning games, if he's playing football, he's going to turn it round, because he's got a track record in this league. So it looks like finally we've got a back four that Jack Ross can be proud of. And maybe that's going to be the turning point for our season.
How good was Lynch's distribution yesterday?
Good. Like, I remember his first 4 passes were all long, and I started to get Ozturk fears. It's like, is he kicking it long because he can't pass short, or is he kicking it long because the pass is on? And thankfully, it was the latter. But yeah, I did have Ozturk fear at one point.
I'm going to name this podcast's file Ozturk fears before I send it to Sean. I gotta give them all funny names, so this one's is Ozturk fears. What do we make of De Bock specifically? What do we make of him?
Good. I enjoyed watching him yesterday, and it was a shame he was only on for 60 minutes, because I thought we could have got a 90 out of him. But good start, certainly.
Yeah, I mean that's the man's first professional competitive game in a long time, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So only good things to come, I think.
I think De Bock and Lynch both look like they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Which we've always had that kind of headless chicken syndrome a bit with the back four throughout last season, and those mistakes that I keep referring to kept on happening. And I think once this back four gels properly, clean sheets should be happening more regularly.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll help John McLaughlin as well.
When we had Baldwin, Flanagan and Ozturk in the early doors of last season, we had a real headless chicken problem.
Yep.
We were, it was headless chicken run for Sunderland. It wasn't good. Especially, I mean, you look back at the Coventry game, and Baldwin and Flanagan looked like they didn't have a clue what was going on. Like Enabakare gets in behind them once, and suddenly they've not got a Scooby, and he does it like 4 more times.
Yeah.
It was painful to watch. But with Lynch and De Bock, we look like we've got 2 really experienced players that perhaps should probably be above League One.
100%, but they're ours, so we'll keep them.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, and all things going well, we won't be a class below where they should be for much longer. So that's all good. I think what I liked as well about De Bock is, and I liked the substitution for Hume a bit more as well, because De Bock's more of a natural fullback from the way he played. He was a lot more sort of conservative in his play, whereas obviously Hume's more suited like as what you'd call the wing back. So I think, is it a nice idea going forward, Lauren, to maybe start De Bock and have him do the more sort of like normal duties of a fullback, And then if you're chasing a game or you need another goal as you go further on in the game to bring Hume on 70.
Yeah, I quite like that idea, really. It worked yesterday. We got a lot from Denver Hume, and I like him as a player. He's young, he's got a lot left in him. And, good partnerships on the pitch now, and Hume just adds that little bit of extra that we need when we're lacking in it.
Yeah, he's quite slight, but he's a very technically gifted player, and I think a lot of the knackered League One fullbacks on 70, 75 minutes don't want that at that point. They'd rather have De Bock still there.
Exactly, yeah, but I think adding Hume just gives that little bit of extra energy that we often need at that stage in a game. Can't be a bad thing.
I think this league, it's not a league that's easy on the eye. And, there's not really a great deal of room for elaboration and stuff like that. And to have a back four that's solid and your fullbacks are just fullbacks and they defend and you keep clean sheets, then that's all you want, because then you build on that. And we've proven we're a team that's always got at least a goal in us. So, if we want to grind out promotion through a lot of dull 1-0 wins, bring it on, please.
Yeah. But there you say 1-0 win, we've got to get that nil first, haven't we?
That's the thing,
yeah.
but that's what I'm saying. We need a back four that's just solid and dependable and know what they're doing. I think we're heading in the right direction now.
Might not even go for the bigger picture, saying that we need more of an identity.
I suppose so, yeah. But there's nothing wrong with just being able to defend. Defending's an art, so there's nothing wrong with having a back four that can just defend and just be ugly about it and just kick the ball out the net.
Maybe just go a bit more no-nonsense with it. Ozturk was great at that. He wants someone to hoof it. There you go. Big Alim, he'll do the job.
Lynch feels like Ozturk Plus to me.
Ozturk Plus, Ozturk Premium.
Yeah.
Gold edition.
Yeah, gold. I can't really pick any bones with that. So I think we'll bring the discourse on actual substantive football there before we talk to you, Andy. So just before we finish off, let's get some predictions for the game against Lincoln. So what I normally do with predictions is, just for those who perhaps aren't aware of how I do this, it's a fairly new thing that we've started doing. We'll go around the table. I'll ask you for what you think the score will be, a brief synopsis on how the game's going to go if you had a crystal ball, and who's going to be the goal scorers. So I'll kick us off. I think against Lincoln, I think we're going to be happy for the time being, satisfied perhaps, maybe not happy, but still we're going to see some fundamental problems. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win. I'm going to go from goals from Gooch, and I'm going to go for a goal from 09 again. I think we'll start the game in a similar fashion how we did against MK Dons. I think what will happen is they'll get the early goal, being the home side, but I think we'll get momentum as they go on, because we'll sort of show ourselves to still have more quality despite not using it as best we could. And I think we'll get one goal in from Gooch and a second from 09 before the first half closes. Second half will be dull. We'll have our night nurse. You'll have our Uzbek fairy tales read to us, and we'll go out there heads full of nonsense.
This is a really specific prediction. It's like he's telling the story of the whole match.
Look, this is how it's going to go.
Are you just riffing here? Or have you written all this down earlier on?
In fairness, when I get to the second half, that does conclude the story, because obviously nothing happens in the second half. So really, the full stop would have come about 3 seconds after you pointed out how weird my prediction is. But yeah, I think that's how it's going to go. So anyway, we'll go to you second, Jimmy. What do you think?
Similar. Dull game. I think we're finally going to do it. We're going to get the nil. 1-0 Sunderland. Will Grigg redemption tour starts.
And then that knacker gives him 6 out of 10.
Yeah. 6 out of 10. Should have scored more. But yeah, and I think we might win. They're struggling since they changed managers, and I like our new look back four. I think we'll scrap it out. I'm predicting a game similar to when we beat Bristol Rovers away, and it was like we scored first, and then they were like, "Oh crap, what do we do?" And I'm hoping we're going to get similar. Yeah, 1-0.
Fair enough. So you expect us to sort of do away with 2 bugbears there to get Will Grigg a goal and to get a clean sheet?
Wishful thinking, maybe, but we'll go for it.
To be fair, it would be a big step. No matter how fine the margin is, if you get a 1-0 win and Grigg scores, then you're going a long way to reassuring the fans. To be honest, it might look like nothing, but I think that'd be quite a nice result, just to sort of put some fears behind us. Really, we'll go to you third, Lauren. What do you think?
2-0. We are going to, in my happy little head, start Lee Burge, because obviously I'm his #1 fan. I'd like to see the goals from Maguire and Power, because they are sexy goals. We get, they're goals you want to see.
Yeah.
They're attractive goals. So we're going to get them from Maguire and Power. It's going to be a little bit dull to start with, because we seem for a good 20 minutes to just sort of not really know how to play football.
Yeah.
We're on the pitch and it's sort of like, well, what do we do now? Then we randomly get a goal. So we're going to get one of them. And just very much the same as the halftime talk is in a foreign language. No one has a clue what's going on. And a second goal in the second half.
Yeah, but
and they're not going to get one.
I think that's a very solid prediction. But of course, you're only going to see one of those goals, Lauren, because it's going to be start boring. So you're going to nip away, get something to drink, and you're going to come back and all of a sudden, Maguire's put it away.
Don't, because it was my birthday yesterday, so I wanted to see the 2 goals and didn't quite go to plan.
Well, I know it's obviously belated, but happy birthday.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Yeah. Rightio, Andy, you're the last one, so you've had plenty of time to mull over some ideas there.
Yeah, I think the clean sheet is coming.
Right.
The league clean sheet is coming. I think it'll be 2-0. Jordan Willis, first goal on 14 minutes from a corner.
Lovely. Nice.
I'm being specific as well.
Excellent.
Here. Yeah. Second half, they'll try and get back into the game, and we'll score. Chris Maguire will score on 77 minutes with a counter attack.
Lovely.
And we will win comfortably 2-0.
Yeah. And that, again, would dispel a lot of fears as well, because not only have we got a clean sheet there, we've got a goal late into the game from a counter-attack. Which
sounds almost too good to be true, doesn't it?
It implies a sense of liveliness that Jack Ross's pints of night nurse don't normally guarantee after the half-time, So what we'll do now is, just before we move on, we also need to pay homage to the Sunderland ladies team, who did an excellent job of beating Nottingham Forest 3-1 this afternoon. So how are the lasses? That is another excellent result. It is good to see both the men's and women's team firing. Although it's nice to see the women's team can fire more than the lads' team, evidently. But, it's nice that neither have kept clean sheets. I'm glad there's some consistency there, Don't ever say we've not got an identity, because both the lads' team and the lasses' team aren't keeping clean sheets. So fair enough. Although I can't see this, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I hazard a guess that the lasses have probably kept more clean sheets than the lads. They both won, so that's good enough for me. Anyway, Andy, let's talk about you. We're going to talk about you now. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Are you excited?
Yeah. I don't know what you're going to ask me, but, bring it on.
We've got a few questions, obviously, many of which, all of which pertain to your ventures as a podcaster, okay. Through the digital wilderness.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you're bursting with excitement there.
Hit me with them.
No worries. Okay. Andy, first one, on Top Flight Time Machine, you've done the Keen Odyssey. You've nearly finished Kevin Keegan's My Life as an Electric Mouse.
Yes.
But if you and Sam were to do a deep dive on a past or present Sunderland player, who would it be and why?
Oh, that's a good one. A past or present Sunderland player. I think Sam Allardyce would be good value.
I think you're very good value.
Yeah. He did an autobiography, didn't he, Sam?
He did.
Yeah. I mean, it's a long time since he played for us, but obviously recently as a manager.
Mm-hmm. I believe it was 82 to 83.
Yeah.
He had one season. I've actually got a programme at home with Allardyce on the back. It's quite unnerving, actually, because you can see him and it doesn't look like him.
Yeah, that was kind of my first couple of years as going as a fan as a kid.
Nice.
Yeah, I think there'd be lots of comedy potential in an Allardyce autobiography deep dive. Yeah.
Think how much material you've got just about talking about gravy.
Exactly, yeah.
Can you imagine?
Pints of gravy.
Pints of gravy.
And pints of wine.
Pints.
Yeah.
Pints, not the gallon.
Well, possibly.
Yeah. You could see him there, couldn't you? Ladle in hand, looking over the horizon.
I don't know what we're doing after Keegan. We've only done 40 episodes of the Keegan Odyssey so far.
Yeah.
So we're not quite at the end of that yet. But
right.
Allardyce is a possibility, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Any others?
From Sunderland's era, we've had so many players that are devoid of personality.
There's some great ones, though. There's some, like, the best ones I'd always imagine for that kind of material, but either ones that, like, have a lot about them, like Allardyce. He's like a very big sort of, like, joke personality, isn't he? Like, like Paddy Power, they've all done so much on him, which you might even say detracts from him a bit. But then there's so many players as well that are just, like, enigmatic. There's just nothing about them that we have on record, like Cabral.
Yeah.
I reckon you could do loads.
There needs to be an autobiography as a source. So if Cabral's written a book, then I'll have a look at it. But I don't think he has.
You might have. I'm pretty sure Milton Keynes has.
That'll be good.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be in Spanish because he's Honduran, isn't he? So yeah. That is the language of Honduras, isn't it? Spanish. Central America.
I'll take your word for it.
Could be.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad shout. But if I've got any Honduran listeners and I'm wrong, I'm sorry.
There it is.
Yeah.
But Allardyce. We'll go for Allardyce.
Allardyce is the big one, yeah. So anyway, this is a question from me. This is one that I had on my mind. Now, obviously, on Athletico Mince, you've sat there and you've asphyxiated yourself through many Peter Beardsley segment from Bob. Which has been the hardest one to sit there and not laugh or just sort of stifle your laughs while listening to? Which has been like the strongest one for you?
I keep thinking back to the one which was episode 15, which was My Jambo in Hell.
Right.
Where I went to visit Bob in his hotel in France during the Euros. Mm-hmm. And he'd been trapped because of the shenanigans of the hooligans. So he'd locked himself in his hotel room with just a massive amount of jambon. And he was trying to keep it cool. and stop it from going off. And that was because I didn't see any of that coming.
No.
And that just tipped me over the edge.
Yeah, I don't know how you could ever see any of them coming, really.
True,
like, yeah.
true. I've kind of learned to build up a resistance to it a little bit.
Yeah.
But
So
just try and zone out and try and go to a different place.
Is that hence why episode 15 was a bad one, because the resistance is not there yet. You're very vulnerable to beards.
Yeah, we kind of went into new territory with Jambon Hell.
Yeah. I think if it was me, though, the best one, not even like the best episode, but like the time when it just like really just caught me off guard, is I forget the episode, right? He makes himself some porridge with his wife's bald best woman tune, and he calls it, but it's obviously it's porridge oats, and he calls it oats so simple, but it's like oats so simple, and it's just so like strong, and I can't. Even now, I can't listen to it. Like, it's just a gets. Like, honestly, so much good material. You do very well to be able to talk and breathe today.
I'm just trying to stay alive, basically, during it. Yeah, like you said, asphyxiated.
If nothing else, it tests your resolve.
It does.
Yeah, you've done very well, Andy.
Thank you.
Well done,
it's
Andy.
a hard job.
It is, but someone's got to do it.
Exactly.
Someone else got to do it. Anyway, another top flight time machine related question. This one from one of our Facebook followers. Can you do some quick fire ratings? So
yeah, I'll rate anything, mate.
Okay.
Yeah.
So shall I just go for it?
Go for it. What you got?
Pink slices.
7.
Self scan machines.
8.
Miguel Almiron.
2.
Chicken dippers.
10.
League One referees.
4.
Charlie Methvin's fashion sense.
4.
The omission of Jack Ross's identity.
5.
Cabral.
2.
David Moberg Carlson.
1.
Cabral when he played during Tottenham.
1.
Cabral when he's
I'm withering.
Cabral when he squared the sideways past to MK Dons, allowing them to go 2-0 up.
0. We don't give him any zeros, so try not to do that.
No.
But yeah.
Gus Poyet's assistant manager Maurizio Torrizio during the 1-0 win over the Mags, when he did that thing where he sort of crouched and put his hands in the air and sort of like stared around grinning. You know what I mean? You must know what I mean.
8.
8, yeah, very, very good one. And finally, my Jambon Hell.
10.
10. Yeah, there we go. Fantastic. Okay. And finally, that's very good. Well done, Andy. Did very well there. Yeah, no, I might just throw you one more to catch you off guard, but you know, you're getting a real sweat on there. So
yeah, they were coming thick and fast there. I didn't know when it was going to stop.
Yeah,
I was starting to flounder a bit.
It was pretty brutal. To be
the
honest,
Moberg Carlson stuff really knocked me.
Honestly, yeah. Showers Mavrias.
2.
Fair enough. Okay, that will leave that one there. So finally, if we were to part ways with Jack Ross, which one of the British Managers Lunch Club would you hire to take his place? Now, this decision doesn't need to be an actual footballing one. It's not going to be it's not going to be like an academic decision.
I've got to say Roy Hodgson.
Roy Hodgson.
Whoa.
Oh no! You know, as soon as you said Roy Hodgson, I was waiting for it, and you got me. I hope the mic doesn't cut out there because that was good. Hey man, no. No, I think I don't know. I wouldn't say Roy. I think there's probably who would I have. To be fair, I'd probably
not Pulis.
Not Pulis, not Pullis, not Tony Pullis. Couldn't have Tony Pullis. I'd probably have Allardyce for both reasons. Really,
I probably would have Allardyce back as a manager.
Yeah, I mean,
I know it's been mooted, and he's spoken today. I think about it. He said, "Not at this time."
No,
for Sunderland,
very ambiguous.
I think we kind of possibly saying in a couple of weeks when the billionaires are here, maybe then.
Yeah,
I'd have him back.
Well, you know, that's if and when, really. I suppose I was probably going on record and publicly apologise right now. This is a very good time for this. Very profound, but we're going to go for it. On the Kieran Brady podcast, where the takeover was done, that was a genuine slip of the tongue. I am not in the know, nor have I ever been in the know. If what I meant to say is I think it's going to be done, but, you know, the die is cast now.
It'll be done when it's done.
It'll be done when it's done. You know, if I've made my bed, and you better believe I'm going to lie in it, because that's just where we are. You know what? Actually, Andy, I told a lie. I've got one more quick fire rating for you.
Go on then.
Victor Anichebe's weird voice.
I really like it. 9.
I don't know. I do not like that.
I didn't think it would be like that, but I like it.
It's really just like silky, but like it's not, but like in an uncomfortable way. Like not silky as in like a nice piece of clothing that you consciously choose to wear, like a strange ocean animal sliding past your leg.
I found it soothing. I'm giving it a 9.
No, not for me.
Well, I'm rating, so you're not.
That's
so
true. Yeah, that's true. It's true. You're not
Put
wrong.
that in your bed and lie with it.
That's in my bed. It's in there. It's right in there with me. Victor Anichebe's voice is right there with me, all tucked away, telling it a bedtime story. Getting it. It's night nurse, courtesy of Jack Ross. Had half a pint left over. Anyway, I think that's a good place to leave it for today. It's Still putting up quite the insanity of me and Anth last week, but this one was orchestrated, so it was never going to be. But thank you very much, Andy, for joining us today.
Thanks for inviting me.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. And thank you, Lauren.
Thank you for having me as well.
You're very welcome. And Jimmy, you're not welcome.
Yeah.
I still don't like you. I never will.
Well, until next time in 6 months' time, so you can abuse me for more ratings.
Yeah, look. I mean, you do at least 3 more clangs between now and then, mate. So So yeah, thanks, Andy and Lauren. Jimmy, if you come back, do give us the heads up. I need to, mentally prepare myself to not look at your ratings. But anyway, here's to 3 points against Lincoln, and hopefully some more convincing results in the aforementioned ways we've spoken about. Thank you very much, everyone, and good night.